Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Maheran Zakaria. I'm from UiTM, Malaysia. So today I will give my speech. The title is Literature Review. Okay. So before we start, okay, look at the introductions of what I'm going to talk about. Okay. So the topics we cover first is the introduction, and it followed by the meaning of the literature review, followed by definitions and what are the importance of literature review, the purpose, the types and the sources of this literature, and the step, and then the points to be considered in making the literature review. Okay, next we look at the topics in detail. Okay, first of all, we look at what is literature review. Literature review is a written summaries of journals, articles, books and other documents that describe the past, the currents and the information on the topic of your research. And this is what you have to go through, okay, before you're doing your research. Okay, next. So what are the meanings of the literature review? It is a descriptions and analysis of the literature relevant to the particular field of topics, provides overview of what work already had been carried out, who are the main researcher and who did that work, so that give you some insights of what have been done in the research. Okay, then we look at detail. What are the meanings of literature review? Meaning that the readings or the works of the what have been done by other scholar or researchers, and then it gives you a pathway, a directions to a better research, and it can help identify what are the relevant to your research. Okay, next we look at the literature review, which is say that the reader, the researcher knows the research in the area. The good review will increase a reader confidence. Researchers' professional competence, ability and backgrounds. Okay, next, look at what are the importance of literature review. Actually, it can give you some ideas of what are the research that you are going to embark. Okay, what are the purpose? The first one is that to define your problem. You can seek, you look at the other scholars' works, and then you can find what have been done by them, and then to update your knowledge, because sometimes you can see what are the current situation, the past situations, and then you can see the gaps in the research, and then to avoid unintentional duplication of well-established findings, to get understanding of research methodology, and to see the recommendations highlighted by the previous study or the previous scholars, and to help to know how your study add to the existing body of knowledge or the literature. Okay, and next we look at the other topics. These are the conceptual literature and the database literature. You can compare between those in terms of synonyms. Actually, they are carrying the same meanings but the different in terms of term. Okay, so that we have two kind of sources, that is primary sources and secondary sources. Primary sources some sort is like the internal from the researcher, whereas secondary sources is the readings from the external, for example from the library or from the literatures. Okay, look at the primary sources, which is from these authors' findings or the author's report, which have not been published yet in the other journals. And then the secondary sources are those in the online or in the library, which is published by the other scholars, so that you can refer this as your part of the literature review. Okay, you can see here, these are the sources of this literature, where you can get from the magazine, newspapers, electronic database, books, journals, conference papers, thesis, encyclopedia and dictionary, and also research reports. So this combined between the, this is mainly based on the secondary sources. Okay, there are also the problem related to literature review. The first problem is that the candidates are unable to differentiate what to write in the literature and the theoretical framework, because actually literature review and theoretical framework, there are different parts. Okay, some students they tend to copy from literature to the theoretical framework, so that you must know how to distinguish between these two parts. Okay, the second one, the students tend to summarize article in the literature review. Actually, it is wrong for you to summarize one article. So that what you should do, you have to analyze it critically. You have to do it rigorously, robustly, and then make an article appraisal for every article that you have read. Okay, and then the candidate fail to conceptualize concept clearly and critically. This is also a problem where the researcher should know what variables, what concept they are going to take or to put it as one of the variables in the research. Okay, and then candidate fail to relate between concept and theory, and candidate fail to explain about other concept used in the previous studies. So it must be clear. Okay, so this is what is concept. Just now I mentioned what is concept. Actually, the concept is related to the variable that we are going to test or we are going to use for the research. Okay, so it said that mental image that has no one meaning to someone. Okay? And then describe what you think, not something that you can describe, and what we need to know about concept. Okay, for example, a concept like beautiful. Sometimes we define beautiful is based on the look, the appearance. Actually, it is more than that. When we describe beautiful, it also comprises of the intelligence, intellectuality, and also the behavior. So that all the concept we combine and then we measure or we put it under beautiful. Okay, so that beautiful is not only a composite of the looks only, but also the intellectuality and the thinking of a person. Okay, so what is concept in the research? So the concept actually we relate to the variables, and variable there are many variables. There are independence, dependence, moderator, and intervening. Normally, the dependent variable is your problem statements. What are the problems that are you going to investigate? And then, what is independent? Independent means that this is the cause of those problem statements of the dependent variables. And there are moderator and intervening. Intervening, we can relate to the mediating variables. And then they say that variable actually come from the concept that we conceptualize or we define the concepts. Okay, why you choose this concept? Then we have to justify why. It depends on the dependent variables. Okay, how do you know your concept is something that what you would like to examine? So this one you must look at the literature or the research before, which is selected by the previous scholar or the previous researchers. Okay. So now we look at the problem statement. There is a relationship between problem statement and literature review. Actually, problem statements are the dependent variable or the concept that you have defined or you have conceptualized earlier. Okay. So before we start with the literature, maybe we have the problem statement, or when you read the literature, then you come out with the problem statements. Okay. Okay, what is problem statement? They said that something researcher has an interest to investigate or to fill the gaps in the phenomena. Okay, what is a review of the literature? It's a piece of writing. A literature must be defined by the concept which I have mentioned earlier. That is then guided by the research objective, the problem issues that you are going to investigate. It's not that you are described, but you must use some sort like you must analyze and make it according to what you are going to investigate or do some research. Okay, what you gain? These are the positive or benefit of the literary review. First is the information seeking, mean that you know what have been done before, and then maybe at the current situation before you integrate this in your research. Mean that you must read a lot to make sure that your research are robust and rigorous. Otherwise, your research will not cover so many knowledge or body of literature, body of knowledge. And you must put the critical appraisal, meaning that after you review all the literature, you cannot, based on the others' contact or the others' opinions of the researcher, then we have to do our critical appraisal. What is critical appraisal? Meaning that we as a researcher have to summarize and we have to come out with our views, with our stand of what they are trying to say. Meaning that we have to summarize the compilations of the researcher or scholars' findings to come out with our own judgment or our own appraisal. Okay, to make sure that it is unbiased and valid in our studies. And then should be organized and related to the thesis or the research question that we are developing. It's not that tailored to the other researchers' studies, but tailored to our studies or the researcher studies, meaning that our studies. Okay, so you said that we must synthesize the result, meaning that if you get the solutions, the finding from the research, then you must synthesize to make sure that a compilation of, for example, this scholar highlight this is the importance, and the other scholars highlight this is not important, meaning that you must have the argumentations, discussion, or we call it critical appraisal to summarize all the stock from the previous scholars. Okay, so there are also areas of controversy. That means that there is argumentations, then we have to summarize it. So why do I need a literature review? Why literature is very important to the researcher? Because it demonstrates that you know the field. The more you read, the more you feel that you do not know. The more you read, the more it enriches your knowledge. So the more better, the more what we call it knowledgeable you are. Okay, that's why we need to do literature review. Okay, question to ask about the research questions. So we must have the research question also. Specific thesis, problem or research question. Okay, so how to write a good literature review? Actually, it should be a purposeful kind of writing which is well argued. Mean that we cannot say that those who support only, we must also take those who do not support the findings. Okay, and then it will be supported by the evidence. It's not that merely, meaning that if you do the literature review, you must cite who are the author or the scholar and plus the year of the publication, because that are the evidence. We are not doing for the sake of based on our stand. We must say that these are taken from the other scholars. Okay, well documented. That's why when you do literature, you must ensure that you must have a reference at the back, so that people will see these are the journal that publish what are cited in the text, in the literature. Okay, a straightforward style, use clear and simple English, appropriate for your audience, meaning that if you want to publish in the thesis, maybe the audience are your supervisor and your examiner. But if the thesis, if the studies or the research want to publish in the journal, maybe the audience is much more on generals. So must focus who are the audience. Okay. Okay, and then say that each paragraph they must have one idea, supporting by two ideas supporting, and then give that example. Okay, and then you can look at this example. For example, main idea is things we eat for breakfast, and then the items, what are the breakfast? Eggs, pancake, sandwich, bread, and so on. These are the ideas and can give the examples. Okay, another example. There are 3 reasons why Malaysia is one of the best countries in the world. First, Malaysia has an excellent road systems. All Malaysians have access to toll highway at a reasonable price. The second one follow that Malaysia has a high standard of education. Students are taught by well-trained teachers. So similar in the Indonesian, you can put in that way. Why Indonesia is one of the best country? For example, they have very patriotism citizens that go ever to do everything for the nations, and follow that they have also the highways and the tolls at also reasonable price, where you are afford to pay the tolls. And then students in Indonesia has high standard of education also. Okay, and as a result, the conclusions for every paragraph, they must have a conclusion. Malaysia is a desirable place to live. Okay, because of these infrastructures provided by the governments. Okay, against the writing the literature, you also need to think about what is you actually doing. You are describing something, you are analyzing, you are explaining, arguing, give example, and finally you give the conclusion. Meaning that for every paragraph that you write the literature, you must have these elements, so that to make your literature is more comprehensive and rigorous. Okay, and then they say that the topic affect the language you use the language that are not exploit, meaning that it's not that aggressive. Okay, exploit word, don't use one words to repeat, meaning that to repeat the words along the literature, so that you must enrich the words, and you must make it more diverse. For example, instead of mention, state, suggest, discuss, don't put that accordingly. Ali stress, Ali point that you must varieties your vocabulary in your literature, so that it makes the readers does not boring with the literature. Okay. Okay. Then in terms of words, just now I have mentioned don't use the same word. Okay, these are the example of the words that can use. You can use judges, postulates, excludes, convince, confuse, question, and one, and so on, so that the reader will be more interesting to read your literature. Okay. So the word should be in the active and passive voice. Okay, you can use both, but be focused on stress on the active voice. Okay, in the tense, for example, you can use should use in past tense because the literature has been done before. Okay, this is the final talks. The final thoughts, when the conclusion of my presentation is that a review is a piece of discursive, a series of logical, discussing writing style, not a list of describing, summarizing one piece of literature of another. And then it is a bad science for you to see every paragraph to start with the author. Okay, and then organize the literature review into sections that present themes, trends, including the relevant theory. Okay, finally, the last then not least, we are not trying to list all the material published, but to synthesize and evaluate it according to concept and thesis of research questions. Thank you for all the students out there for lending your ears, listening to my presentations. I hope that my talk will help you, give you some contribution to help you to do your research. Thank you again.